I didn't win a competition to get this job. I don't know about your experience, Vicey, but we sort of grew together. I People felt comfortable with me on my values. They thought, well, the skills we can work on, but the values are there. So they were very patient with my skills development. But when I first signed up, one of the things, one of my conditions was, sure, I'll work with ICA Canada, and I'll be a facilitator, and I'll try to learn how to train, but I will not have anything to do with the board. I will not have anything to do with the sort of volunteer side of things. That as an employee of a charitable nonprofit, that I look at and think, you know, there's a lot of energy can be put into just the organization side of it. I don't even ask me. And that's like a condition of being employed here. I won't do it.
Why was that?
Because I'd worked in a nonprofit environment, and I knew that you could be the staff appointee to sit on a board committee, and it can suck up an unbelievable amount of time and energy, and create a sense of, maybe it's not true, but create a sense of not being productive and not getting the work done. And I didn't want that. And I also knew my own propensity to pay attention to the bigger picture, to the administrative side of things. I quit my previous job in community development. I quit because I went into my boss and I said, here is a Gantt chart of all the things that I'm supposed to be, I've been asked to work on over the next 3 months. And in pencil on the bottom are all the things that I think that I should be doing. And if we can't flip that around, I will quit this job to force you to hire somebody to do the stuff in pencil. And he says, oh, no, we'll work on it, we'll get it done. 3 months later, I quit. Because there was no capacity to say, I'm going to let the administrators couldn't say, okay, I'm going to administer. And my role as an administrator is to be, is to protect my staff's ability to just focus on getting the job done. I just knew how slippery that slope was, and how in ICA there's so much conversation going on, and there's such big picture image of, okay, what kind of an impact we can have on society, that you could be a full-time volunteer and collect a paycheck, and people work. And that was, I think, a serious problem for us as an organization. A lot of people collecting terrible paychecks to do wonderful stuff, but it ended up being very internal, very internal. In Canada, it was very different though. Like through the 90s, we had a small core of staff who are still here, who were doing all this wonderful work, and our board of directors was, I think, kind of they'd stand back and say, hey, you're doing great stuff, all right. That was it. Or they were there because they liked the great stuff that they were doing. And it's a way of staying involved. It wasn't a very active board. And part of the splitting of ICA Canada and ICA Associates, you know, was an act of saying, all right, there's these fee-for-service activities of training and consulting. If we're charging people a fee, then go make some money, you know. So splitting that off and saying we're going to create a for-profit entity was, again, a social entrepreneur adventure. But part of the reason for doing that was to create this huge gaping hole in the mission of ICA Canada. So now that you're not doing the training and consulting and somebody else is doing it for you, what are you doing? And that question went unanswered for at least 3 years while they struggled to find their feet again. They did. But it was a really rough few years. And that's when the years of people hanging on and liking it and hanging around or doing stuff, but no real sense of results. What is the impact we're having? All of that just faded away. So what we have here is are two much smaller organizations than they used to be. You know, in the 80s there were a lot of people involved. In the 2000s there were very few people involved. But now we're at the point where the few that are involved are busy as heck. One side's generating some revenue for a change, and we're in the black. On the other side, hey, we got programs happening. We're attracting young people into the organization. But there was several years of, I think, some pretty deep despair. And financially it was horrible. So that was rough. Tough lessons to learn. But we had some basic structures in place. You know, we got one organization that could say, if it wanted to, could say, our job is to get out there and earn money. And the surplus value, let's call it profit, we've got some choices over. But because it's a for-profit corporation, one of the shareholders that has a right to some dividends is ICA Canada. They always have a majority share. It's built into the constitution of this organization. They have a majority share. And it's not dilutable. So if we're making money, and if, as an organization, we say, let's pay some profit, let's pay some dividends to the shareholders, then ICA Canada, the charitable organization, benefits. So we're just getting to that point now where we can have those conversations. The next level of governance, you asked, one of your questions originally is, okay, where to from here? And for me, one of my great frustrations in life is that I tend to live about 5 years out into the future, and so I'm always exude this aura of dissatisfaction or critique, I think, because I can see where we could be, and ICA attracts people who see possibilities like crazy. I'd love to be able to put some mechanisms, bureaucratic, administrative mechanisms in place that would enable us to say yes to all these people who say, oh, I can see these possibilities, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. I need to be able to say, okay, let's talk to the IT folks, let's talk to the HR folks, let's talk to admin, you know, let's talk to sales. We've got to get to that point where we have different points of entry. Through the 90s, the sort of metaphor I had in my mind that I couldn't make more concrete really was that there was no front door. The only way into ICA was to be in. You know, you're either in or you're out, but there's no front door. There's no way to initiate a transaction, really, get that first level of involvement. You have to be able to speak the lingo and know the language in order to be part of it. And so it was very insular and close, and it became more so as money became tight. It gets very hard to talk constructively with people if in the back of your mind there's somebody saying, how are you going to pay your mortgage? Am I going to get a rent check or a paycheck this month? That really undermines your ability to collaborate and cooperate. So where to from here? We have a huge succession problem. Huge, totally overwhelming succession problem. There is no next generation unless we make it focus of our attention. And we've been focusing some of our attention on it over the years. We've experimented with different ways to grow. But for myself, I really do focus exclusively on the ICA Associates in my mind. I don't volunteer with ICA Canada. Once they're split, I still find myself not volunteering with ICA Canada. I help out, I support, I'll talk to people, I'll coach them, I'll have little roles, but I'm not going to sit on the board or a committee or anything like that, because it's enough to do the work and try to have a family at this point. And if I started saying, oh, I'm volunteering with this, that, and the other thing, then I have a family that wouldn't put their hand up and say, just a minute, but I wish they would. They're not that overtly demanding.
So also the the technology of participation. The methods and stuff like that, that's all old.
That's all old?
What do you see in terms of the next generation of that?